Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. This time, we're exploring this incredible book, Autobiography of a Yogi by Paramahansa Yogananda.
Ah, yes.
Now, this is not like, your typical spiritual text, right?
Right.
It's an autobiography, so the spiritual themes are kind of interwoven with his personal story,
Yeah.
which makes it even more captivating.
Yeah.
So we're going to focus on the first two chapters for this deep dive. And, I'm really excited to kind of unpack this with you. What do you think?
Yeah, the first two chapters I think are really interesting because it gives you that kind of glimpse into, the roots of his seeking and how these early experiences really shaped his understanding of the world.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, right off the bat, he's this young boy who's captivated by the Himalayas. He talks about these amulet journeys, like these almost like
Yeah.
instinctive urges to head towards the mountains.
Yeah.
What do you think is about the Himalayas that holds such a powerful draw?
Well, mountains in lots of spiritual traditions symbolize this like point of connection between heaven and earth.
Mm.
And it's, a place of solitude transcendence where you can go to commune with the divine.
Yeah.
And for him, it's almost like this magnetic force pulling him towards his destiny.
Yeah, and it's interesting how those early yearnings for the Himalayas, foreshadow his kind of deeper search for a guru.
Absolutely. And that search leads him to some pretty extraordinary encounters. Like the one with the saint with two bodies.
Right. That's great.
It's a concept that challenges our usual understanding of reality, right?
I mean, the idea that someone could manifest in multiple locations at once is
Yeah.
pretty mind-blowing.
It really is. And it kind of suggests that maybe consciousness isn't bound by the limitations that we typically associate with the physical body, right?
Wow.
It opens up all sorts of questions about the nature of reality itself.
Yeah, it definitely makes you wonder.
It does, and the potential that might be hidden within each of us.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of remarkable individuals,
Yeah.
how about that story of the Tiger Swami?
Yes.
Initially known for taming these wild beasts with his bare hands,
With his bare hands, yeah.
and then eventually he turns his attention to taming his inner tigers.
Yeah. What's really intriguing about the Tiger Swami is how his journey really reflects the central theme in yogic philosophy, which is self-mastery, right?
Right.
He understood that true strength lies not in controlling external forces, but in conquering those tigers within, like our own
Yeah.
negative tendencies and destructive emotions.
That really resonates with me. I think, we all have our own tigers to tame,
We do.
those inner demons that we grapple with,
Yeah.
And it makes you think about how we can apply that principle of self-mastery in our own lives.
Exactly. It's a reminder that the most important battles we face are often the ones within ourselves.
Mm-hmm. And it's in these early chapters that we also get a glimpse into, how significant the guru-disciple relationship is in Indian culture.
Right.
Like Yogananda's parents, they embody this with their deep devotion to Lahiri Mahasaya.
Yeah, and this relationship is so central to lots of Eastern spiritual traditions. And the guru serves as that guide, that mentor, who can help the disciple navigate the complexities of the spiritual path and awaken their own inner potential.
Yeah. And the story of his mother, urging him to mentally bow to Lahiri Mahasaya's picture when he was sick as a kid.
Right.
And then the subsequent healing.
Yeah.
It really highlights that concept of the guru's influence
Right.
extending beyond physical limitations.
Absolutely. It points to this level of connection that transcends our usual understanding of
Yeah.
space and time,
Yeah, for sure. And it speaks to the power of faith too, right?
It does. It really does.
And the profound impact a true guru can have on a disciple's life.
Yeah.
Speaking of profound impact, there's that powerful moment where his mother on her deathbed, tells him to find her guru in the Himalayas. It's as if she's like passing on the torch, and trusting him with continuing that spiritual seeking.
It's a pivotal scene, It's almost like a prophecy that kind of sets the stage for his own search for a guru, which ultimately leads him to Sri Yukteswar.
And that first encounter with Sri Yukteswar is loaded with significance, right? It's almost like he immediately recognizes him as his destined disciple.
It's a classic example of a guru recognizing the potential in their student. Sri Yukteswar, with his deep spiritual insight, he could see the path that lay ahead for Yogananda, the journey he was meant to undertake. And right from the start, he begins to impart teachings on essential concepts like karma and divine grace.
Yeah, so can we delve a little deeper into those concepts? For those who may not be familiar with Eastern spiritual philosophy, what does karma and divine grace mean?
Sure. So karma, in simple terms, is the principle of cause and effect.
Okay.
It suggests that our actions, both in this life and in past lives, create ripples that shape our experiences, right?
Okay.
And divine grace represents a higher power, a force that can intervene and guide us towards our spiritual destiny.
So it's not just about fate or predestination,
Right.
but a combination of like our actions and a higher guidance.
Exactly. It's that interplay between our choices and the workings of a greater cosmic order that Sri Yukteswar emphasizes in his teachings.
And it's fascinating how these teachings are like woven into the fabric of his personal experiences.
Yeah.
You know, like that story of the saint with dazzling eyes who like helps him pass his high school exams
Right.
when he's totally unprepared.
Yeah.
That raises some interesting questions about the nature of divine intervention, doesn't it?
It does. It makes you wonder, could it be that when we're truly dedicated to our spiritual path, that the universe conspires to support us in ways we don't expect?
Yeah, it certainly makes you wonder. And it also speaks to that challenge of balancing worldly responsibilities with spiritual aspirations.
Yeah.
I mean, who hasn't felt like pulled in multiple directions,
Mm-hmm.
trying to juggle, the demands of daily life with our deeper yearnings.
Right. It's a struggle that I think many of us can relate to.
Yeah.
But as Yogananda's story shows, it is possible to find that balance, to integrate those spiritual practices into our everyday lives.
And often those spiritual practices lead to extraordinary experiences,
Yeah.
like his encounter with Ganda Baba, who could materialize perfumes seemingly out of thin air.
Right. It's a captivating example of how the spiritual realm can intersect with the physical world. These stories aren't just meant to entertain. They serve as tangible evidence of the potential that lies dormant within each of us.
They definitely make you question what we consider possible.
They do.
Right.
And that's one of the things that makes Autobiography of a Yogi so compelling. It challenges our assumptions about reality and invites us to consider a broader perspective.
It's like he's saying, look, there are these higher spiritual realities,
Yeah.
and they're accessible through these specific practices and the guidance of a true guru. It makes you want to dive deeper and explore those possibilities for yourself.
It does, and that's where the real journey begins. Yeah, these first two chapters are really just the beginning.
Right.
It's like the opening act of this grand play, setting the stage for the, profound transformations and spiritual insights that are to come.
It does. It leaves you with a sense of anticipation. Okay, so he's found his guru, and he's ready to fully immerse himself in the spiritual life. What kind of challenges and triumphs does he face as he delves deeper into this path?
Well, he soon learns that ashram life isn't always, a peaceful retreat.
Right.
It demands a lot of discipline, humility, a willingness to confront your own weaknesses.
Yeah.
There's that memorable story where Sri Yukteswar forbids him from even mentioning his hunger, even when his stomach is growling louder than a tiger.
Oh, yeah. I remember that. It's almost comical, but it also points to this deeper lesson about, transcending those physical desires and focusing on spiritual growth.
Exactly. The spiritual path isn't always, about blissful experiences and mystical visions.
Right.
It often requires us to kind of face our own discomfort, push past our perceived limitations, and cultivate a sense of detachment from, worldly attachments.
Yeah, it's interesting how he navigates these challenges. Does he ever, rebel against the strict ashram rules or question Sri Yukteswar's guidance?
Oh, he definitely has moments of doubt and frustration, as anyone would in such a demanding environment.
Yeah.
But what's striking is his unwavering faith in his guru's wisdom. He ultimately surrenders to the process, trusting that Sri Yukteswar's methods are leading him towards genuine spiritual transformation.
That takes a lot of trust, especially when you're young and eager for those quick results. It makes me wonder, are there any specific teachings or practices from these early chapters that you found particularly insightful or inspiring?
One that really stands out to me is the emphasis on meditation and the power of inner stillness. Sri Yukteswar repeatedly stresses the importance of withdrawing the senses inward, quieting the mind's constant chatter to connect with that deeper source of peace and wisdom.
That resonates with me. It's so easy to get caught up in the whirlwind of daily life.
Yeah.
Constantly bombarded by all this external stimuli.
Right.
Finding that inner stillness seems more crucial than ever in our modern world.
It is, and it's something that anyone can cultivate regardless of their background or beliefs, The practices of yoga and meditation offer tools for training the mind, for developing a sense of inner awareness and equanimity that can help us navigate the challenges of life with greater clarity and purpose.
Yeah. And what about those miraculous events that seem to pepper his journey?
Right.
Like that time when he sent on an errand with a fellow disciple, and suddenly Sri Yukteswar appears right in the middle of a crowded marketplace.
Ah, yes. That scene is both bewildering and awe-inspiring.
It is.
It suggests that the boundaries of reality are far more fluid than we ordinarily perceive.
Right.
And it speaks to that idea that when we align ourselves with a higher purpose, seemingly impossible things can occur.
It's as if the universe itself is conspiring to support our spiritual growth.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not all about, mystical phenomena, is it?
Yeah.
There are also those moments where he witnesses Sri Yukteswar, like embodying these spiritual principles in his everyday interactions.
Absolutely. Like that scene where Sri Yukteswar is insulted and threatened by a police officer, and Yogananda's, ready to fight back.
Yeah.
But his guru responds with incredible composure and forgiveness.
Mm.
It's a powerful lesson in the transformative power of compassion and nonviolence, even in the face of aggression.
It makes you realize that true spiritual mastery isn't just about achieving these extraordinary powers or mystical experiences.
Right.
It's about living those principles in every moment, no matter how challenging the circumstances.
Precisely. It's about embodying those qualities of love, forgiveness, understanding in our everyday lives. And it's something we can all aspire to, whether or not we have mystical experiences like materializing perfumes or teleporting across town.
Right. Speaking of extraordinary experiences, what about his encounters with other saints and yogis in these early chapters? Each one seems to offer these unique insights and teachings.
Yeah, they're like glimpses into this diverse tapestry of spiritual traditions and practices that exist within India. There's Jagadish Chandra Bose, the botanist, who demonstrates the sensitivity and responsiveness of plants challenging our kind of anthropocentric view of the world.
Yeah.
And then there's Afzal Khan, the fakir, who can materialize objects out of thin air.
Oh yeah, the guy who conjures up feasts and makes a gold watch disappear. Pretty tempting abilities, wouldn't you say?
They are enticing,
Yeah.
but his story serves as a cautionary tale. He ultimately becomes consumed by greed and misuses his abilities, leading to their loss. It's a reminder that spiritual powers, however alluring, are meant to be used for the betterment of humanity, not for personal gain or ego gratification.
Yeah, it's a lesson that echoes throughout spiritual traditions, I think.
It does.
True power lies in service, in using our gifts to uplift others and contribute to a greater good.
Exactly. And it's a message that's woven into the fabric of Yogananda's own journey.
Wow.
It's not just about seeking personal enlightenment, it's about sharing that light with the world.
And speaking of sharing light, what about those sections where Sri Yukteswar delves into the concepts of karma and reincarnation? Those are pretty heavy topics, but they seem fundamental to understanding his spiritual path.
Sri Yukteswar saw them as essential for really grasping the nature of human existence. He taught that our present lives are shaped by our past actions and that we have this opportunity to learn and grow through multiple lifetimes. It's not about punishment or reward, but about the continual evolution of consciousness.
Yeah, it's a perspective that can be both comforting and challenging, wouldn't you say?
It can.
Comforting in the sense that we're not simply victims of circumstance, but active participants in shaping our destinies.
Right.
But challenging in the sense that, we're accountable for our actions, both good and bad.
Absolutely. And it suggests that this life isn't a one-time event, but rather a chapter in this much larger story.
Right.
The choices we make, the actions we take, have repercussions that extend far beyond our immediate understanding.
It makes you think about the long-term implications of our choices, doesn't it?
It does.
And it highlights the importance of living with awareness and intention.
It does. And it reminds us that the spiritual journey is this ongoing process of growth and transformation. There'll be ups and downs, moments of clarity and moments of confusion. The key is to keep learning, keep evolving, and keep striving to align our lives with our highest aspirations.
And amidst all these profound teachings and extraordinary experiences, does Yogananda ever have moments of doubt or questioning? I mean, he's still a young man navigating a complex spiritual path.
Of course, he's human after all. There are moments where he expresses fear, uncertainty, even anger at times. He questions Sri Yukteswar's decisions, grapples with his own limitations, and struggles to reconcile his spiritual aspirations with his worldly responsibilities.
That's reassuring to hear that even someone on a path as extraordinary as his still faces those very human struggles. It makes his journey all the more relatable and inspiring.
It does. It reminds us that spiritual growth isn't about achieving some perfect state of being, but about embracing the messiness and complexity of the human experience while still striving to connect with something greater than ourselves.
So we've covered a lot of ground here, from ashram life and challenging teachings to miraculous encounters and glimpses of his evolving understanding of the spiritual path. But there's still one big question lingering in my mind. What about his mission to the West? We know he eventually brings the teachings of Kriya Yoga to America, but how does that path unfold? Is it something that's foreshadowed in these early chapters?
That's a great question, and one we'll explore in the final part of our deep dive. Stay tuned.
Okay, so we've delved into Yogananda's early years, his intense search for a guru, and his first steps on the yogic path. Now, the question that's on my mind is, how does this lead to his mission in the West? Because we know that he eventually brings the teachings of Kriya Yoga to America.
Right, it's a pivotal part of his story. And what's fascinating is that those seeds are subtly planted throughout these early chapters.
Yeah.
It's almost like glimpses of a future that's calling to him.
Now that you mention it, I do recall a few hints here and there, like Kriya Yoga mentioning that someday he would travel to a distant land where people would be receptive to India's ancient wisdom.
Exactly. And there's even that scene where Sri Yukteswar tells him that a university degree would make him a more credible spiritual teacher in the West.
Oh, right.
It's almost as if he's preparing him for the unique challenges and opportunities that are going to await him beyond India.
It does seem like Sri Yukteswar had a pretty clear vision of his destiny. And then there's that incredible prediction by Lahiri Mahasaya, his guru's guru.
Right.
He foretold that about 50 years after his passing, the West would manifest a deep interest in yoga, and that Yogananda's life story would be written.
It's remarkable how accurate that is, considering that he published Autobiography of a Yogi just a few decades after Lahiri Mahasaya's death, and it went on to become this global bestseller.
It's pretty mind-blowing when you think about it.
It really is.
And remember that scene where Yogananda expresses his longing to go to the Himalayas for solitary meditation?
Yes.
But Sri Yukteswar insists that he stays in the world and continues his education.
Yeah.
It's as if he's guiding him towards a path of service, of sharing his spiritual insights with a wider audience.
That's a crucial turning point. I think Sri Yukteswar recognized that his destiny wasn't in seclusion, but in bridging the gap between Eastern and Western spiritual traditions. He was meant to bring that ancient wisdom of yoga to a world that was increasingly hungry for meaning and purpose.
Yeah, it speaks to a theme that resonates throughout the book.
It does.
This idea that true spirituality isn't about withdrawing from life, but about transforming it, about bringing the light of awareness into every aspect of human experience.
Exactly. And that's precisely what he does. He takes those profound teachings of yoga, steeped in thousands of years of Indian tradition, and he makes them accessible to a Western audience. He translates these truths into a language that resonates with modern seekers, offering practical tools for self-realization and spiritual growth.
And what a legacy he left behind.
Yeah.
It's incredible to think that it all started with, those formative experiences and teachings that are laid out in these first two chapters.
Absolutely. These chapters lay the groundwork for a life dedicated to profound spiritual exploration, selfless service, and ultimately the fulfillment of a destiny that touched countless lives across the globe.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into Autobiography of a Yogi, what final thought would you leave our listeners with? What can we take away from these early encounters and teachings?
I think the key takeaway is that the spiritual journey is this ongoing process of discovery, of pushing beyond the boundaries of our limited perceptions. It's about seeking a deeper understanding of ourselves and the universe. And while a guru can guide us, ultimately, the path unfolds within each of us.
Beautifully said. And perhaps within these pages lies a spark that will ignite someone's own quest for self-realization.
Yeah, I have no doubt about that. After all, as Yogananda himself said, the true purpose of life is to find God and to enjoy Him, and Autobiography of a Yogi is a testament to that very truth.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Autobiography of a Yogi. It's been an illuminating journey, and I encourage you to continue exploring the wisdom in these pages. You never know what profound insights and transformative experiences await. Until next time, keep seeking, keep questioning, and keep the light of truth burning brightly within your own heart.